As they got closer to the shore, Denny leaned forward and looked up at the sky. Dusk was coming fast, and he wanted to get there while he could still see everything. While never a proven theory, Denny stood by the observation that the sky was bluer the closer you were to the ocean. He remembered how he used deepening hues to make the sky come to life when he painted seascapes. Denny belonged on the sea, or at least standing on the shore painting it. As they pulled up the side street to make the light across the town center, Beth put her window down so Denny could smell the salt air. It filled the cab, and his eyes lit up. "Uncle Denny, you have the bluest eyes I've ever seen. Have I ever told you that before?" Beth said in her soft, buttery voice. "Thank you," Denny said. He blushed a little at her observation. "Beth, thank you for everything. You know, in case I forgot to tell you at dinner." She put her hand on his knee and smiled as her black hair started to whip around her face from the ocean breeze. Denny couldn't contain his smile as the salt air engulfed him. He let it fill his lungs until he felt like they may burst. While back in his days living in Agape, he always loved the beach and spent so much of his time there. He wasn't sure he ever appreciated all that it was. The beckoning edge of the earth, with the most beautiful ebb and flow of never-ending waves, was Denny's heaven. He struggled for years to remember the sounds and smells of the ocean. The crashing of the waves would be deafening at times. He remembered having to yell at the person walking beside him. At other times, the ocean was slow, repetitive, hushed lullaby of sorts. The ocean could be as soothing as a security blanket and as relentless as a banshee, ripping and snaring at the ankles with the intent to suck in any victim it could. With all its unpredictability, Denny loved that fickle beast. He was overwhelmed by the thought of finally being able to let it all wash over his body. Jude found a spot to park the truck along the boardwalk and turned the key. Beth opened the door and stepped out of the way, extending her arm to the sea. Denny slid over and guided his small, skinny legs over the edge. He slid out behind her and stood tall and straight for the first time in years, especially since his heart attack in prison. Despite the aching from the ride back to Agape and the bumpiness of the ride to the beach, he stood strong. His eyes widened as if he wanted to take in the entire ocean in one glance. The crash of the waves and the cold, salty breeze were like arms opening to a long-lost soul. Denny stepped off the boardwalk onto the sand. He stepped over the dried clumps of seaweed scattered around from high tide. His boots sunk in as each stride was quicker than the last. Denny paused to bend over and unlace his boots. He peeled them off while never taking his eyes off the sea. A seagull raced down and harkened him home, catching him off guard. He steadied himself after taking off his socks and shoes. Jude and Beth flanked him on either side and guided him down further as the floodgates opened, unleashing 35 years of tears. As they inched to the shoreline, a wave lunged from the pack in all its white foam glory and roared their way. It engulfed the trio's feet up to their ankles. The cold fall waters shocked them all. Beth and Jude jumped back out of instinct. Denny shuffled in further without flinching. He loved it, even though his feet ached from the cold. He had been living in that water, that moment, for decades. Denny was home.